بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على محمد بن عبد الله المبعوث رحمة للعالمين وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تمسك بسنته إلى يوم الدين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As we continue inshallah ta'ala today on the 9th hadith in the series, we have the hadith of Al-Aswad ibn Asram al-Muharibi radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, wherein he said that he said to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, "Awsini, give me advice, counsel me." And so the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said to him, "Atamliku yadak?" He asked him, "Do you own and have control of your hand?" And so Aswad says, "Fama amliku idha la amliku yadi?" What could I possibly own and have control over if it's not my own hand? And then the Prophet ﷺ asked him a second question. قال أتملك لسانك? Do you have control and do you own and control your tongue? And Aswad radiallahu anhu again replied to the Prophet ﷺ saying, فَمَا أَمْلِكُ إِذَا لَا أَمْلِكُ لِسَانِي? He says, what can I have possession and control over if it's not my own tongue? And then the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he answered him saying, فَلَا تَبْسُطْ يَدَكَ إِلَّا إِلَى خَيْرٍ وَلَا تَقُلْ بِلِسَانِكَ إِلَّا مَعْرُوفًا. It is here that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam lets the fountain of his divine knowledge pour forth, guiding him and guiding the ummah with this wisdom, where he says to him, then do not stretch your hand out towards anything except that it's good. And do not say anything with your tongue except that it is also good. This hadith is collected by Imam al-Tabarani in his Mu'jam al-Kabir, and Al-Imam al-Haythami declares it to be Hasan, to be sound, to be good in his famous collection Majma' al-Zawahid. What we find in this hadith is the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam telling us again, one among many other times, things that deal with noble manners and etiquettes. If we were to collect in the way that scholars have all that the Prophet ﷺ taught of authentic, forget about all the other stuff that's made up and weak, but of stuff that is authentic, of what the Prophet ﷺ taught, of how we, the believers in Allah Azza wa Jal, the followers of His final Prophet ﷺ, of how we should live our lives based on the best example for humanity, the finest role model, that of the final Prophet and Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You have encyclopedias that teach us everything that deals with actions and that deal with speech. And we find that this is exactly what the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam is so wonderfully calling attention to. And he states it sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the form of a question. Because naturally, in the same way that this companion answered, may Allah be pleased and well pleased with him, every one of us will say, of course I possess my hand and my tongue, and that means if it's a part of me, that I'm in control. But how many of us are truly in control when it comes to our tongue and all that we say, and with regards to our hand and all that does? How many of us are really in control? And how many of us really find that we lose control of ourselves and our body parts when it comes to these two very important organs of our body? The Prophet ﷺ, this is why he tells him, he says, if you truly have control and you truly are the one who is the master of these things, then make sure that with regards to your hand, that it's only used for good. That it's only used for good. And this is something that's important for us to understand. As a Muslim, we need to make sure that our actions are for good. And that when it comes to the people around us, that we do all that we can to minimize anything of abuse towards them from ourselves. Meaning that we need to make sure we don't abuse people physically. Whether it is by putting our hands on them and hurting them, whether it is by taking what's not ours, by abusing that which is theirs, whatever it may be. And there's so many different scenarios. And the Prophet ﷺ said, in addition to that, to make sure that anything that you say is ma'rufa. And this is a term that is so common within the Quran and the Sunnah, of that which is understood to be good, generally understood to be good. And this is telling us that you don't have to be some PhD in philosophy or some sheikh of Islamic studies to really understand and know what's right from what's wrong. That these are things that are really so elementary that there's no excuse for anybody to say, well, I really don't know. Or, well, I'm not knowledgeable enough. There really is no exception. Everybody knows because of the fitrah that Allah has blessed us with inside and the inspiration that He gives us to know what's right from what's wrong. It's just our part to do the right thing, to make the right decision and choice time and time again. And as the Prophet ﷺ taught us so beautifully in that other hadith which is authentic, he said, "Al-Muslimu man salima al-Muslimuna min yadihi wa lisani." He said that the true Muslim is the one who other Muslims are spared from their hand and from their tongue. That other Muslims are protected from being in any way abused by the Muslim. Muslims should not in any way be abusing each other physically or verbally. And verbally, this is something that unfortunately it's becoming more prominent. We find that when it comes to strangers, we give them our best manners. When it comes to each other, we lash out in the worst of ways. We seem to lose all sense of respect, regardless of whether we're talking about an imam, we're talking about a president, whether we're talking about, a brother from in the masjid, a sister, a student in class, regardless of what. We lose that sense of self-respect such that we'll say things that displease Allah Azza wa Jal and His Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And if we can understand that by us doing the right thing of making sure that we control our physical body and our physical actions and our verbal actions so that they are in line with what Allah the Exalted and His Messenger, may Allah's peace and blessings be upon him, want from us, then that means that we are doing the right thing, and that gains us a higher status with Allah. That further earns for us Allah's love and Allah's mercy and Allah's blessings and Allah's forgiveness, and inshallah ta'ala a better place in this world as well as in the hereafter. And the opposite is true. That for those of us who choose to always give in to whatever our emotions and our impulses and our anger, etc., then that does the opposite of it, driving us further away from Allah Azza wa Jall's love towards His anger, further away from Allah's mercy towards His punishment, further away from Allah's blessings to being, of those that can then be in tremendous need because Allah Azza wa Jalla is not providing in a way that He does provide for us and continues to provide for us. And so, ahibba, brothers and sisters, as we look at this simple hadith, we see that it is full of so much wisdom, so many blessings. And every one of us, if we are truly in control of our bodies because our body parts are attached, then we have to strive extra hard, making sure that anything and everything of what we say and do, that it is in accordance to what Allah the Exalted wants from us and what His Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam exemplified for us. And if we do, we will be of those that are blessed and continue to be blessed. And if we don't, then we have no one that we can truly blame except for ourselves. And we ask Allah Azza wa Jal to bless us to be of those that are truly happy with all that Allah has given us and decreed for us, and that He bless us with the self-control and composure to control all that we say and do, regardless of who we're dealing with in the situation at hand, and that He help us to truly be of those that are a blessing in this dunya and will be blessed in the hereafter. Allahumma ameen. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد جزاكم الله خيرا والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله